My wife said, I am pregnant, but the child isn't yours. Don't feel insecure and overreact. I'd name the child after you. I was surprised and couldn't believe what she said until she gave me the doctor's report confirming the pregnancy. I smiled and said, That's fine. The next morning, she woke up to see her belongings outside and the divorce papers on the dining table. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. If you enjoy these kind of stories, support us by subscribing to this channel. Click on the like button and tell us where you are watching us from in the comments section. Now let me tell you how everything unfolded. I never thought betrayal would wear a soft voice and a calm face. My name's Jordan Mathis, and I'm 36 years old. I work as a warehouse manager for a logistics company out in Charlotte, North Carolina. The kind of job where your back hurts more than your heart, until one day it flips. For the longest time, I believed that love was about patience and consistency. I believed if you showed up, paid the bills, kept your promises, and never raised your voice, you were doing it right. And maybe I was doing it right, but I was doing it for the wrong person. Tasha and I had been married 6 years. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. Her laugh was the loudest in the room, and her smile had this warmth that made you lean in even when you weren't sure why. I chased that warmth for years, ignoring how it flickered more than it shined. I was always the one adjusting, always the one compromising. But I thought that's what love asked of a man. It was a Sunday night, the kind where everything felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you uneasy, like the calm before a storm. Tasha came into the living room holding her phone in one hand, her eyes unreadable. She sat across from me on the edge of the couch, like she was trying not to disturb the air. I remember thinking she was about to ask me for something big. Maybe a trip, or to quit her job. Instead, she took a breath and said, I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant. Her voice didn't carry joy. It didn't tremble either. It was flat. I blinked, trying to process the words. My brain jumped ahead, picturing baby names, nursery colors, how to rearrange the guest room. But then she added, the child isn't yours. I swear the room went cold. Don't feel insecure and overreact, she continued, like she was coaching me through my own heartbreak. I'd still like to name the child after you. I think it's only right. I don't know what kind of man she thought I was, but I must have done a hell of a job making her believe I'd just nod and accept that. That I'd help raise another man's baby like it was mine just because she said it was only right. I looked at her, really looked at her, and she was so calm. Not even a flinch of shame. She handed me a doctor's report, like that was supposed to make it better. Confirming the pregnancy didn't ease the blow, it only made it real. My hands trembled slightly, but I smiled. Not the kind of smile that comes from joy, but the kind you wear when your mind is collapsing and you don't want to give the enemy the satisfaction of seeing it. I said, that's fine. And she looked relieved. That was the part that broke me. She thought I was actually okay. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling like it owed me an explanation. My chest felt like it was carrying bricks, but I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just replayed her words over and over. Don't feel insecure. Like I was the problem. Like her betrayal was a test of my emotional maturity. At some point around 3 a.m., I got up and started packing her things. Not violently, not in some fit of rage. I folded her clothes, zipped up her suitcases, unplugged her curling iron, and neatly placed her heels in the shoe rack by the door. I wasn't angry. I was done. There's a difference. By the time the sun rose, everything she owned was outside on the porch. I brewed a pot of coffee like I did every morning, poured myself a cup, and set the divorce papers on the dining table where she usually scrolled through her phone. She walked out of the bedroom in a robe, yawning like nothing had changed. Then she saw the table, the suitcases through the front door, and finally, the look on my face. Jordan, what is this? She asked, her voice small. It's over, Tasha, I said. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. The weight in my words did all the heavy lifting. You're not staying here. We're done. Her expression twisted, not into guilt, but panic. The reality set in. She wasn't in control anymore. She ran over to the dining table, flipping through the divorce papers like she could unread them. You're overreacting, she said, her voice rising now. It was one mistake. One night. It didn't mean anything. I nodded slowly, sipping my coffee. That's the part that makes it worse, I said. You threw away our marriage over something that didn't even mean anything. She started crying, the dramatic, chest-heaving kind she used when she wanted sympathy. Please, Jordan, I don't have anywhere to go. I didn't think you'd actually throw me out. I stayed silent, looking out the window, watching the sky shift from pink to blue. I wasn't moved. I wasn't cruel either. I was just finished. She paced the living room like a trapped animal, then grabbed her phone and stormed outside. Not to leave, but to start the smear campaign. I saw her take a photo of her bags on the porch, heard her muttering things like abandoned while pregnant and heartless husband. I didn't care. I knew what was coming. The texts from mutual friends, the concerned calls from family, the sideways glances from neighbors. But I also knew one thing. I wasn't going to let anyone else rewrite this story. I may have been blindsided, but I wasn't going to be broken. Not this time. And that was the beginning of the end. Or maybe, finally, the beginning of my peace. She didn't leave right away. I think part of her believed she could still manipulate the moment, flip it into something romantic or redemptive, like this was just another fight we'd eventually laugh about in 5 years. But what she didn't understand was that her betrayal didn't just crack the foundation of our marriage, it obliterated it. She paced around the porch, still in that robe, calling her sister, crying loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Her voice bounced between righteous indignation and desperate pleading. He just threw me out, she said. Didn't even try to talk. He's punishing me like I'm some villain. That was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry it didn't go the way she'd planned. She thought she could control the narrative, paint me as the emotionally stunted husband who couldn't handle a little mistake. But I wasn't playing the fool anymore. I had been loyal, patient, forgiving to a fault, but that fault had been exploited long enough. Inside, I sat at the table and flipped through the divorce packet again. I'd had it drawn up months ago, not because I expected this, but because deep down, I had started to prepare myself for something to go wrong. Tasha had changed over the past year. She'd become distant, more secretive, always claiming late work meetings or out-of-town conferences that never added up. At the time, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. That's the twisted part about love. You'll gaslight yourself to keep the image intact. I remember one night, about 6 months ago, I came home early from a canceled shift. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was empty. No note, no text. When she got back 2 hours later, she said she had gone for a drive to clear her head. I believed her, or at least I pretended to. Eventually, she stopped crying. The porch went quiet. She sat on the steps, hugging herself, her phone resting in her lap. I stood behind the window curtain, watching her. She looked so small, and for a brief second, a stupid, fleeting second, I felt pity. But then I remembered every night I cooked dinner and waited for her to come home. Every time I asked if she was okay and got, "I'm tired" in return. Every night I kissed her forehead while she scrolled through her phone, probably texting the same man who got her pregnant. And just like that, the pity evaporated. She hadn't just broken a vow. She'd buried me beneath it and walked away like I was collateral damage. Around noon, she knocked on the door again. I opened it, but didn't invite her in. She looked at me like a stranger trying to remember where we'd met. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't move. "You said enough last night," I replied. She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Jordan. It just happened. I was drunk. It was a dumb office party, and one thing led to another." I raised an eyebrow. "So, you're carrying a baby that came from a mistake made over cheap wine and bad decisions." She winced. "That's not fair." I leaned against the doorframe, my arms crossed. "You're right. Life isn't fair. Neither is betrayal. Yet here we are." She begged again, asked if we could go to counseling, if we could try and salvage something for the sake of our history. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You buried our history when you chose to rewrite our future with someone else's child." She left shortly after that, took her suitcases and slammed the car door like that would hurt me somehow. I watched her drive off and felt nothing. Not relief, not rage, just the stillness that follows a storm, the silence that feels earned. I knew the backlash was coming. She'd weaponize sympathy, twist timelines, paint herself as a misunderstood woman caught in a complicated situation. And sure enough, The messages started rolling in within hours. Her cousin texted, "Why are you kicking a pregnant woman out?" An old college friend called to say I should be more understanding. And my own damn uncle left a voicemail saying, "Marriage is about weathering storms, not abandoning ship." But none of them knew the truth. They only knew the version she fed them. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. The house felt foreign now. Every picture frame, every throw pillow, every little decorative plant she insisted we buy, it all felt staged, like a set from a play I didn't audition for. I got up and started taking things down. Not violently. Methodically. I packed up every shared memory and put it in boxes. If I was going to reclaim my peace, I needed to strip the house of her shadow. Malik, my oldest friend, called me around midnight. "Yo, I just saw Tasha's post," he said. "You good?" I told him the truth. Told him everything. He didn't gasp. Didn't get dramatic. Just said, "Damn. I always had a weird feeling about her." "You were too good to her, bro." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Too good. I had worn loyalty like armor, but all it did was make me an easier target. Before I went to bed, I wrote a short note and left it on the fridge. It read, "You broke something that can't be fixed. Please don't come back." I didn't do it for her. I did it for me. To make sure I wouldn't waver if she ever knocked on that door again with tears and stories. Some part of me still wanted to believe she was the girl I met at that birthday dinner, the one with the loud laugh and warm smile. But she wasn't. Maybe she never was. Maybe I was just too busy romanticizing potential to see the person in front of me. I went to bed alone that night. The bed felt colder, wider, unfamiliar. But for the first time in months, my mind wasn't racing. My heart wasn't aching. It was just me, my decision, and the quiet resolve that I'd finally chosen myself. The next morning, I woke up before the sun did, my body still locked in the rhythm of early warehouse shifts even though I had taken the day off. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the indent she'd left in the pillow, wondering how many times I had kissed her good morning without knowing she'd already started lying to me. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt abandoned. Even though I was the one who did the leaving. I got up, brewed a cup of coffee, and stood at the window like I was waiting for something. Maybe an apology. Maybe a storm. I got neither. Just silence. That's when the knock came. She stood at the door with her overnight bag slung over one shoulder and a brown paper bag in her hand. Her eyes were puffy, mascara smeared just enough to make you think she'd cried all night. She held up the bag like it meant something. "I brought you breakfast," she said softly. I didn't move. "You forgot your key," I replied. "You changed the locks?" she asked, blinking as if I had committed the greater betrayal. "I did a lot of thinking last night," I said, opening the door just enough for her to see my face, but not enough to let her in. "And I realized I don't owe you anything. Not a home. Not forgiveness. Not even an explanation." Her face dropped, the polite guilt replaced by panic. "Jordan, come on. We've been together for 6 years. You can't just throw that away." I laughed, dry and humorless. "You threw it away the moment you opened your legs for your boss." She flinched, her lip trembling like she wanted to be angry, but knew she didn't have the right. "It was one mistake," she whispered. "It didn't mean anything." I stepped out, closing the door behind me. "You keep saying that like it makes it better. It doesn't. It makes it worse. You destroyed us for something that didn't even matter to you." She started crying again, but I'd stopped falling for her tears. That well had run dry. She begged to come inside, said she needed a place to stay until she could figure things out. Claimed her sister's apartment was too small, her parents too judgmental. She reached for my arm, and I pulled back like her touch was poison. "Tasha, I'm not your safety net anymore. You lost that privilege the second you decided I wasn't enough for you." She looked at me, eyes wide and desperate. "I made a mistake. People mess up. That doesn't mean you just walk away." I leaned in, my voice low but firm. "You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. Repeatedly. And now you get to live with the consequences." Eventually, I called her brother, Caleb, a decent guy who never really liked me but tolerated me for her sake. When he showed up, he took one look at her suitcase and muttered, "Damn, Tasha, what did you do?" She glared at him but didn't answer. He helped her to the car in silence, only throwing me a glance as they pulled away. It wasn't a glare. It wasn't pity. It was respect. like he'd been waiting for someone to finally put her in her place. And that told me more than I ever needed to know about how she'd operated behind closed doors. Malik came by that afternoon, unannounced but expected. That's the kind of friend he was. Always showing up when you didn't ask, always knowing when something was off. He plopped down on my couch with a six-pack and didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. Just cracked open a beer and handed it to me like it was medicine. I heard, he finally said. Didn't want to believe it. I nodded, sipping slowly. Yeah, she said she's pregnant. But not by me. He winced. Damn, bro. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. You gonna be all right? He asked. I looked around at the stripped-down living room, the bare walls, the ghost of our life together still faint in the air. Eventually, I said, but not today. We sat for hours, trading memories and grievances, piecing together a timeline that now made more sense in hindsight. He reminded me of the time she bailed on my birthday dinner last year, said she had a last-minute business dinner, or the way she always flinched when I grabbed her phone or asked who she was texting. She was slippery, man, Malik said, always dodging accountability. But you? You were solid. Too solid. That phrase again. Too solid. I hated how accurate it was. I had been a steady rock, and she had been weather, always changing, always eroding what I built. Later that evening, the text started again, this time from her. Long paragraphs, overflowing with guilt and justification. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lonely. You were always at work. He made me feel seen. That one line made me laugh out loud. He made me feel seen, as if I'd spent 6 years loving her in the dark. As if dinners, vacations, anniversaries, and sacrifice were all invisible. She ended the message with, I still want to name the baby after you. Please don't shut me out completely. That was the part that finally broke me. The arrogance of that sentence. As if naming the child after me would somehow make it less of a betrayal. As if she could give me a legacy that didn't belong to me and call it a gift. I didn't respond. I just blocked her number. And then, without thinking twice, I posted a simple status on social media. Some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who swore they'd never hurt you. I didn't name names. I didn't share details. But it was enough. People started connecting the dots. And Tasha? She retaliated. Fast. She made a post accusing me of being controlling, cold, emotionally unavailable. Claimed I threw her out for being pregnant. Left out the part about the baby not being mine. Left out the affair. Just enough truth to make it sound plausible. For a day or two, the tide turned against me. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. Old college classmates, distant relatives, even coworkers whispered about poor Tasha. But I didn't fight it. I didn't need to. The truth always has a way of surfacing, and when it does, it hits harder than any lie ever could. All I had to do was wait and watch the mask start to fall. That evening, while scrolling through my messages with the kind of numb reflex that comes after a day of emotional exhaustion, I found something I hadn't noticed before. It was an old thread from Tasha's phone, one I hadn't opened in a while, just sitting there, unread, like a landmine waiting for the right step. It wasn't from me or to me, but it had somehow backed up from her cloud when we synced devices last year. And there it was, a full string of conversations between her and her boss. Flirty, reckless, graphic. No room for misinterpretation. Not emotional support. Not he made me feel seen. It was physical, shameless. Dates, nights out, weekend trips she had claimed were company retreats. My stomach turned. Each message stripped away another layer of the woman I thought I married. I sat back in my chair, scrolling, reading, absorbing. The betrayal wasn't a moment. It was a pattern, a lifestyle, and I had been sleeping next to it for over a year. I forwarded the entire thread to my personal email, then to my lawyer. Not out of revenge, but to protect myself. If she was already building a narrative that painted me as cruel and controlling, I needed to be armed with the truth. Facts. Receipts. This wasn't just a messy breakup. It was turning into a battlefield. Malik, still on the couch nursing his second beer, saw the look on my face and asked, "What happened now?" I showed him the thread. He read in silence, his eyebrows rising higher with each message. Finally, he exhaled and shook his head. "She was gone a long time ago, bro. You just didn't see it yet." I nodded. I see it now. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of notifications. Tasha had gone nuclear. She'd posted a full-blown story on Instagram. 10 slides, all black and white text on a blurred image of her crying face. How it feels to be abandoned while pregnant. How it feels to be punished for a mistake. I couldn't believe the nerve. She made herself the protagonist of her own tragedy, never once mentioning the father of the child, never once acknowledging the affair. It was all my fault. Cold, heartless Jordan. The man who couldn't forgive, who didn't understand how complicated love could be. She used phrases like trauma bonding, emotional withdrawal, and unmet needs. She knew the language of internet sympathy, and she played it like a piano. And people, people ate it up. Her posts started gaining traction, shared by mutual friends, reshared by strangers. I saw comments like, "Men really can't handle a strong woman," and "He threw out a pregnant queen." My blood boiled, but I didn't respond. Not online. I wasn't going to argue with strangers in comment sections. But the anger sat in my chest like a weight. I thought about calling her. I thought about messaging her to say, "Take it down, or I will make the truth public." But then I remembered, Tasha didn't believe in consequences. She only believed in optics. And the truth wasn't something she feared. It was something she twisted. That evening, my lawyer called. She'd seen the posts and advised I stay quiet, but collect everything. "You're not just divorcing her, Jordan," she said. "You're divorcing her lies. And the cleaner your hands look, the better you'll come out of this." So I documented everything. Screenshots, timestamps, emails, text threads. I started creating a digital folder called Truth. Every betrayal, every manipulation, every detail she left out of her story, I stored it. Not to weaponize, but to defend. Because when someone builds a lie that big, eventually it falls under its own weight. And I was going to be ready when it did. Malik stayed over again that night, sensing I shouldn't be alone. We didn't talk much, just watched some old reruns and let the room fill with a silence that wasn't heavy. Just calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing the worst has already happened. I think that's what betrayal does. It numbs you to everything else. The pain is so loud at first that when it quiets, the silence feels like mercy. Around midnight, I got a call from a blocked number. I didn't answer, but a voicemail came through. I waited a few minutes before playing it. The voice on the other end wasn't Tasha, it was a woman. Soft-spoken, shaky. "Hi, I don't know if this is Jordan, but my name is Layla. I'm Jason's wife." Jason, as in Jason Hall, Tasha's boss. My heart stopped. "I found your number in my husband's phone," she continued. "I don't know what she's told you, but I think you deserve to know everything. I've seen the messages, the pictures. This wasn't one night. It's been going on for almost a year. He even rented a cabin in Asheville for them last winter. I just thought, if the roles were reversed, I'd want someone to tell me. I'm sorry. I really am." She hung up. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it was a portal to another reality. Jason's wife. The man Tasha cheated with. The man who got her pregnant. Married. Just like us. Another household shattered by the same lie. I played the voicemail again, this time letting Malik listen. His jaw clenched. "You send that to your lawyer?" he asked. I nodded. "She's gonna bury herself with her own lies," he said. "And when she does, you'll be the only one still standing." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The fallout had only just begun. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I laid on the couch with the phone on my chest, playing that voicemail from Layla over and over, each time trying to grasp the full weight of it. Jason's wife. Not a rumor. Not a theory. A real person with a real voice and real devastation in every word. It confirmed what I already knew in my gut. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a full-blown affair. Planned. Repeated. Hidden. It wasn't just about sex. It was about escape. It was about deception so deep that both our marriages were collateral damage. And Tasha, even now, was out there parading herself as a victim. That was the part one couldn't swallow. Not the betrayal, but the performance. The next day, the social fallout started bleeding into my real life. My phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, coworkers, old college buddies, even my mother. Everyone had suddenly become a relationship analyst. offering their unsolicited takes on my situation. My supervisor at work, Mr. Landers, called me into his office mid-morning. He was always the no-nonsense type, ex-military, didn't believe in drama, but even he had heard whispers. "Look, Jordan," he said, folding his hands across his desk, "your personal life is yours. But people are talking. You need to get ahead of this before it gets worse." I nodded, jaw clenched. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't matter. In today's world, perception is louder than truth." That sentence echoed in my mind for the rest of the day. Perception is louder than truth. And damn if he wasn't right. The internet didn't care about facts. It cared about drama, about tears, about emotionally manipulated narratives. Tasha knew that. She played into it. She posted again that afternoon, this time a long, heartfelt caption under a picture of her staring out a window, hand cradling her stomach like some tragic heroine in a made-for-TV movie. "I never thought I'd be alone during this," she wrote. "Carrying life inside me while trying to pick up the pieces of my own." Hundreds of likes. Comments full of prayers and heart emojis. People saying, "He'll come around," and "You're so strong, mama." I was furious. Not because she was lying. That didn't shock me anymore. But because she was winning. She was controlling the narrative, painting me as cold and cruel while I sat in silence, watching my reputation unravel. I didn't want to post. I didn't want to turn this into a public tug of war. But Malik, ever the realist, sat across from me that night and said, "If you don't tell your side, someone else will, and they'll screw it up." He was right. I didn't need to rant. I didn't need to bash her. I just needed the truth to exist. So I crafted a post. Simple, clear, factual. I uploaded screenshots. No captions, no dramatics. The doctor's report with the estimated conception date. The text threads between Tasha and Jason, the ones that made her story crumble. And finally, the voicemail from Layla. I didn't even need to say anything. The evidence said it all. And then, I logged out. Shut my phone off. Tossed it on the kitchen counter like it was on fire. I couldn't handle the blowback. Not in real time. When I turned it back on the next morning, everything had changed. The post had exploded. Thousands of shares. Thousands of comments. The tide had turned so hard and fast it felt like whiplash. People were apologizing. Mutual friends backpedaling. Even Tasha's sister messaged me privately, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know the full story." My inbox was full of apologies from people who had publicly shamed me just 24 hours before. That's when I realized the truth might be slower, but once it shows up, it's undeniable. Tasha took down her original post, disabled comments, then deleted her entire Instagram account. But it didn't end there. Layla reached out again, this time through email. She said she'd left Jason, said she was filing for divorce, too. "Funny how our pain brought us to the same place," she wrote. "I hope you find peace in yours." I replied with a simple thank you, unsure what else to say. We were connected now in this strange, sorrowful way. Victims of the same two people. A man and a woman who thought their affair was a private escape, but forgot that destruction isn't containable. It spreads. Like fire. The HR department at Jason's company got involved soon after. Apparently, someone had forwarded my post. There was an investigation. Meetings. Statements. 2 weeks later, I heard he'd been let go. No official statement, just a quiet disappearance from the company website and a LinkedIn status change. Tasha lost her job shortly after. Whether she quit or was forced out, I didn't know. But the damage was done. She went from being the sympathetic single mother to the exposed mistress of a married man, and the internet doesn't forgive quickly. The days that followed were quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of silence that feels like a waiting room. Malik eventually returned to his own apartment, and I was alone in the house again. Alone with the memories. The scent of her shampoo still on the pillow. Her favorite mug still in the cabinet. Her nail polish in the bathroom drawer. I wanted to burn it all. But instead, I packed it. Every trace of her. Every reminder. I boxed it up and labeled it simply, Tasha. Then I drove to a storage unit and left it there. Out of sight. Out of my life. Out of my home. Still, every now and then, I'd get a message. A number I didn't recognize. A burner account. A cryptic, "You didn't have to ruin her." Or worse, "You'll regret this when the baby's born." That one stayed with me. Not because I feared it, but because it showed me just how far people will go to defend a lie they believed in. But I didn't regret it. Not one bit. I had lived in denial for too long. Let love blind me. Let loyalty paralyze me. Not anymore. Because now the world saw what I saw. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I didn't feel crazy. I felt vindicated. The first time I saw Tasha in person after the fallout, it wasn't planned. It was 3 weeks after I dropped the receipts, after her social media imploded and her job quietly disappeared. I had gone to the local pharmacy, just trying to pick up a refill on my blood pressure meds and a new toothbrush, when I saw her walking out with a small bag and that same calm expression she used when she told me the baby wasn't mine. But this time, the calm didn't feel powerful. It felt hollow, like someone wearing peace as a mask. She saw me, froze mid-step, and for a second, we just stared at each other in the parking lot like two people caught in the wreckage of the same plane crash, both surprised the other survived. Her belly had grown, not huge, but noticeable now. A physical reminder of everything she'd broken and the one thing she couldn't hide anymore. She walked toward me slowly, unsure if I'd turn and leave. I didn't. I stood still, arms crossed, watching her try to find the right version of herself to present. "I didn't think I'd see you here," she said, her voice lighter than expected. Almost conversational. Like the last month hadn't happened. Like she hadn't humiliated me, lied about me, and dragged my name across the internet. "This is my neighborhood," I replied. "You thought I'd disappear?" She flinched at that, and I saw the tiniest crack in her facade. "I didn't mean for any of it to go that far," she said. "People just reacted. It got out of control." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, people do that when you lie to them." She looked down at her belly, then back at me, eyes glistening but not yet crying. "I lost everything," she whispered. "My job, my friends, my parents won't even speak to me. Everyone thinks I'm a monster." I tilted my head. "Maybe they finally see who you really are." That broke her a little. I saw her lip tremble, her shoulders tense. She took a deep breath. "I didn't mean to ruin your life, Jordan." I chuckled. "You didn't ruin my life. You freed me from a lie I kept calling love." She didn't know what to say to that. Maybe she expected anger, or tears, or begging. Instead, she got indifference. That scared her more than anything. She started to say something else, but I raised my hand and cut her off. "You've already said enough. And I've heard enough." She stepped back, eyes darting to the people around us, maybe hoping someone was watching, hoping to twist this moment into something else, something usable. But nobody was paying attention. No one cared. It was just us. Two people who once shared a bed, now sharing only silence and consequences. "Take care of yourself," I said finally. And then I walked away, not looking back. Later that night, I got a message from Layla again. She had seen the latest wave of posts, people calling me a hero for exposing the truth, others turning it into some messy online spectacle. She wrote, "It's crazy how people love the drama but forget we're real people living in the aftermath." She wasn't wrong. The same internet that had crucified me now wanted to canonize me. But both versions felt hollow. I wasn't a villain or a hero. I was just a man who refused to be lied to any longer. I told her I appreciated her words and hoped she was finding peace too. She responded with a photo, her hand holding a cup of tea on a quiet porch. "One day at a time," she wrote. "But peace doesn't come easy. Not when your name has been in everyone's mouth for a month straight." I got a call from my aunt one morning, a woman who had always loved Tasha more than she ever did me. She asked if it was true, if Tasha really lied about everything, if the baby really wasn't mine. I told her yes, told her I had proof, that I didn't want to relive it, but if she needed to see it, I could send it. She went quiet for a while, then said, "I never liked how much she talked about herself. But I thought that was just confidence." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She ended the call with, "I'm proud of you for walking away. Most men wouldn't have." And that stuck with me, because she was right. Most men wouldn't have. I had friends who were raising children they knew weren't biologically theirs. Men who stayed for the sake of peace, for appearances, for some warped version of love that looked more like penance. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't wake up every morning and pretend that child was mine. Couldn't look into its eyes and see another man's DNA and lie to myself that it didn't matter. That's not strength. That's surrender. And I had surrendered enough of myself already. The next week, a letter came in the mail. No return address. I opened it cautiously, expecting some anonymous insult or half-baked apology. Instead, it was a handwritten note from Tasha's mother. I raised her better than this, it began. I'm ashamed of what she did to you, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It was brief, honest, painful, and it ended with, "You deserved better, Jordan. You still do." I didn't cry, but my hands shook holding that letter. Because deep down, I always wanted someone, anyone, from her side to acknowledge what she did. Not for validation, but for the record, for truth. But even with all that truth finally exposed, the healing wasn't immediate. It's not like clarity comes with closure. I still had nights where I woke up sweating, dreaming I was back in that living room, listening to her say, "Don't feel insecure." I still flinched when I saw couples holding hands at the grocery store. Still questioned if I'd ever trust someone again without dissecting every text message and phone call. Betrayal lingers. Not like a scar, but like a shadow. Always there. Always waiting to be remembered. And yet, in that same darkness, I also felt something new growing. Not peace, not forgiveness, but power. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing you stood up for yourself when it would have been easier to stay quiet. The kind that reminds you, every time you look in the mirror, that you didn't break. You chose yourself. And that, more than anything, was the beginning of something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. About 2 months after everything came crashing down, when I'd just begun to reclaim a sense of normalcy in the house that used to feel haunted by her presence, Tasha showed up again. It was a gray Tuesday afternoon, one of those slow, cloudy days that make time feel like it's dragging its feet. I had just finished organizing the hall closet, something I had put off for months, and was tossing out old junk when I heard the knock. It wasn't frantic or soft, just steady, persistent. I opened the door expecting a delivery or maybe one of the neighbors. But there she was, standing in the exact same spot she had stood the morning I threw her out. Only now her belly was round and pronounced, her eyes sunken with fatigue and something that almost resembled humility. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, clutching a wrinkled tote bag and a folded jacket, like she didn't know whether to beg or apologize. "Jordan," she said finally, "can I come in?" I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart thudding in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. Seeing her in person again, pregnant and worn down, almost made me hesitate. Almost. But then I remembered the texts, the social media smear campaign, the look on her face when she told me the baby wasn't mine and asked to name it after me like that was some sort of prize. "What do you want, Tasha?" I asked, not moving an inch. She looked around nervously, as if checking to see who might be watching. "I have nowhere else to go," she said. "My sister's place is packed, and my mom's still not talking to me. I just need a place to stay, just for a little while." I shook my head slowly. "You need shelter. Not me." Her lip trembled, and she stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Please, just until the baby comes. I'll stay out of your way. You won't even have to see me." I let out a bitter laugh. "You want me to house the proof of your betrayal under my roof? Do you hear yourself?" She started crying, real tears this time. The kind that come with fear, not manipulation. "I don't have anywhere to go," she whispered. "Everyone's turned their back on me." I nodded, eyes sharp. "That's what happens when you burn every bridge and try to walk on smoke." She sat down on the front steps, covering her face with her hands, sobbing in a way that should have moved me. But it didn't. I felt detached, like I was watching a movie I'd already seen the ending to. I went inside, grabbed $200 in cash from the drawer, came back out, and handed it to her. "There's a motel 5 miles down the road. They take cash. Stay there. Figure the rest out later." She didn't take it at first, just stared at the money like it was a slap. "You really won't let me in?" she asked. "Not even for one night?" I leaned against the doorway, voice calm. "You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. And this house, this peace, isn't something I'm willing to lose again. Not for you. Not for anyone." She took the money with shaking hands and walked off without another word. I watched her go, her figure slowly fading down the sidewalk, and for the first time, I didn't feel rage or betrayal. I felt pity. Not the kind that makes you want to help, but the kind that makes you grateful you got out when you did. That evening, she went back online. Another new account, another post. Kicked out again. Alone. 8 months pregnant. Some men really have no heart. But this time, no one bit. The comments were dry. People asked what happened to the other man. Where was the baby's father? Why wasn't he stepping up? The silence on her post said everything. Her narrative had run out of gas. I didn't respond. I didn't even look twice. Instead, I spent the evening cleaning out the last of our shared closet space, throwing her remaining things in a box labeled Return to Sender. Malik came by later that night with takeout and sat with me on the back porch, both of us eating in silence until he said, "So, she showed up again, huh?" I nodded. Pregnant. Desperate. Still trying to make her mess mine. He shook his head and sighed. "You did the right thing, bro. I know it's hard, but this is you winning." I looked out at the fading sunset, the sky streaked with orange and purple, and for the first time in a long while, I believed him. This was what winning looked like. Not applause, not validation, just peace. The next few weeks passed quietly. No more surprises, no more voicemails, just the slow process of building a life that was truly mine again. I redecorated the bedroom, replaced the sheets and curtains, even bought a new couch that didn't have years of shared memories sunk into its cushions. Every small change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I wasn't rushing into anything, wasn't dating, wasn't chasing distractions. I was just healing, slowly, steadily, choosing myself every day. Then, one morning, I got a message from Layla again. Short, direct. She gave birth yesterday, named the baby Jordan. I stared at the screen, rereading it twice. Tasha had gone through with it. She really did it. Gave another man's child my name like it would somehow tether me to her forever. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I wasn't surprised. Just disappointed. That she still didn't get it. That she still thought I could be manipulated through sentiment. But I didn't feel pulled back. I didn't feel trapped. I just shook my head and deleted the message. Because at the end of the day, the name didn't matter. The truth was still the truth. And I wasn't going to carry someone else's lie just because it had my name attached to it. I had spent too long dragging dead weight, loving someone who only saw me as a safety net. Not anymore. I had drawn my line, and I was never crossing it again. It's strange how quiet the house feels now, like it finally belongs to me. Not in the legal sense, I always owned it, but in the emotional sense. It used to echo with a kind of tension, the silent weight of unsaid things and half-truths lingering in the corners. Now, the silence feels earned. It's the kind of quiet that only follows a storm that ripped through everything, tore the curtains off the wall, shattered the windows, and left you with nothing but your breath and the chance to rebuild. That's what I've been doing, rebuilding. And not just the house, but myself too, piece by piece. Some days I find a version of myself I almost forgot existed. A man who smiles at nothing, who wakes up without dread, who cooks dinner and plays music and doesn't feel like he's waiting for something to fall apart. That version of me was buried for years under the weight of loyalty mistaken for love. I still see people sometimes. Old friends, distant relatives, co-workers, folks who watch the fallout from their screens and never really knew what to say. Some offer polite nods, like they're not sure if I'm still broken. Others approach cautiously, as if betrayal might be contagious. But then there are a few, like Mr. Landers from work, who shake my hand a little firmer now, who say things like, "You handled that better than most would have." And while I don't need their approval, a part of me appreciates it. Because surviving something like this isn't just about endurance, it's about dignity. And I never let her take that from me. I did eventually hear from Tasha again. Not directly, but through a letter. A real one, written on lined paper, folded twice, and mailed without a return address. I recognized her handwriting immediately. It was shaky, uneven, like it had been written during a sleepless night or in a hospital bed. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time before opening it. Just stared at it, wondering what kind of lie or manipulation would fill the page. But when I finally read it, what I found wasn't anger or self-pity. It was something much harder to define. Regret. Not the kind that demands forgiveness, but the kind that knows it won't get any. She wrote, "I didn't understand what I had. I thought love was supposed to be exciting and chaotic. I thought stability meant something was missing, but it wasn't. It was everything I didn't know how to appreciate. She said the baby was healthy. Said she named him Jordan because it was the only way she could make peace with herself. That part made me close the letter and push it across the table. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there, letting her words sink like stones into water. I didn't write back. There was no point. Some chapters don't need a sequel. Some goodbyes are permanent, even when they're written in cursive. But I kept the letter, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder that love isn't always enough to keep people honest. That trust, once broken, doesn't come with a warranty. And that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, even when your heart wants to stay. Because choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. Funny thing is, I've started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee dates, small conversations, a few tentative steps into something resembling connection. One woman, her name's Nicole, told me on our second date, "You're very calm. Like you've seen some shit and decided not to let it shake you anymore." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. I've seen betrayal dressed up in silk and smiles. I've seen love twisted into guilt and control. And now? Now I know the signs. I know my worth. And I know that I'd rather be alone than ever feel small in someone's life again. Nicole's easy to talk to. She asks questions without digging, laughs at my dry humor, doesn't flinch when I talk about the past. That's rare. Most people get uncomfortable when you mention divorce and betrayal, especially when there's a baby involved, even if it isn't yours. But she just nodded, listened, and said, "Sounds like you learned more than you lost." And she's right. I lost a version of my life, sure. A woman I once loved. A future I thought was secure. But I gained clarity, boundaries, and a kind of freedom I didn't even know I was missing. That's worth something. Sometimes, when I walk through the house at night, I catch glimpses of the past. A flash of her laughter in the hallway. The memory of our favorite movie playing in the living room. The faint scent of her perfume in the guest room she never used. But those moments don't hurt anymore. They're just echoes. Reminders of what I survived. Scars, not wounds. And scars mean healing. They mean the bleeding stopped. They mean I lived. One night, a few weeks after the baby was born, I saw a photo of him online. Someone tagged Tasha in a post before she could delete it. The baby was tiny, wrapped in a blue blanket, his little hand clutching her finger. The caption read, "Welcome, Jordan." I stared at the photo for a long time. Not with bitterness. Not even with anger. Just with a strange sense of detachment. That child had my name, but none of my history. None of my blood. None of my responsibility. He was a symbol, not of betrayal, but of distance. Of how far I'd come from the man who once thought love was enough to survive anything. I don't think Tasha will ever fully understand the damage she caused. Not just to me, but to herself. Some people are so used to chaos, they think calm is a threat. She mistook loyalty for weakness, took silence for submission. And when I finally drew the line, she thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. And I never will be again. I'm not perfect. I still have moments where the hurt sneaks in, where I wonder what I could have done differently. But those moments pass quicker now, because I know who I am. I know what I gave, and I know what I deserve. And it's not someone who lies with a straight face and asks for forgiveness with crocodile tears. It's peace. It's honesty. It's love that doesn't come with conditions. So no, I didn't take her back. I didn't raise the child. I didn't play the fool. I chose myself. And if I had to do it all again, I would. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from the person they thought they couldn't live without. Have you ever been forced to choose yourself when someone you loved betrayed you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, whether it's your story or your support. Let's talk about strength, scars, and what it really means to heal. Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear. And if this story moved you, helped you feel seen, or just reminded you of your own worth, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that speak truth to pain and power to healing. See you soon in the next story.